66. Initial horoscope. Ekar iji pura asi, aladha mudu lakhana. Yatodiyat vala rakha, ichha ichan vijayatdi. And once upon a time, Lord Siluguru Buddha, who was the best in the world, was working at Devram Vehera. Sanshekar Bhaya said this Jatak. One of the caste sons who lived in Savatnuvara heard the sermon from Sarvajna and followed all the principles of Purdasasana. That yogi wandered around Savat one day begging for alms with a desire that had not been removed from his heart during his meal. He saw a woman dressed in all kinds of ornaments and looked at the senses auspiciously. Inside that monk, the oils moved. It was like a milk tree that was cut down by force. From then on, the monks did not receive Keshavisabha, Kayaswada or Chittaswada. He is like a deer trembling with fear. He has long hair, woolen nails and tattered robes, as there are no ties in the sasana. After that, seeing the senseless behavior of the monk, the assistant monk said, "Because your chakras and senses are not what they used to be." He asked what the issues were. He said, "I have lost my passion for education." Hearing this, the monk took the helper to the Buddha. "Venerable monks, let us ask why these monks have been summoned unwillingly." "Lord," he announced, "that there is no alam in this Mahana Sasana." When asked if it is true, Mahana cried out, "True, Lord." "Who is the one who got it?" When I asked, "Lord, I will walk around begging a woman." At that time, I got goosebumps. He said that due to the movement of those cliches, the order has lost its grip. Then the sage said to that monk, "O monk, when you are shaken by afflictions, you look upon the poisoned part of your senses auspiciously. If there is anyone, it is not the miracle. In the past, even Bodhi beings, who attained Ashta Samapati and had purified their hearts by the power of meditation, and who went from the sky with a pure mind, were degraded by meditation due to the eyes of the senses, and suffered great suffering." Mahamera quotes Ellen's saffron that was suitable for a small rock that was about 100 feet tall, and the saffron that was originally suitable for Uduran, the saffron tree that grew on the banks of the river. Therefore, why are the bodhisattvas who have such intellects and pure-minded children, who make the bodhisattvas ignorant, ashamed of you? Pure beings are also afflicted by afflictions. Beings of the highest quality are also afflicted by sufferings. Vidara said that even the beings with the highest quality come to the quality. On the last day, during the reign of a king named Brahmadatta in the city of Varanasi, a great Bosatana was born in a wealthy Brahmin caste in the country of Kashi and became a Vinay. They live in the Himalayan region, spending their days in blissful meditation. Those bodhisattvas once came down from the Himalayan forest to seek salt and sour water and came to Varanasi. On the second day of the rainy season, the father, dressed in a warm robe and a blanket, came. The kings invited the bodhisattvas who had been blessed with the great blessings of the great Buddhas to be covered in the royal gift. Those Bodhi beings accepted the invitation and stayed at the king's house and spent 16 years in the garden as admonitions to the royal caste. Then, one day, the king, who was going to settle a deserted colony, asked the Agamahesikas named Mudulakakhana to attend to my ascetic without delay. Mahabosatana would go to the king whenever he wanted, from where the great Bosatana had gone, and then one day, Mudulakhana cooked food for the bodhisattvas, and all the queens bathed in the smell of the ascetic, saying that the Lord would send them today, dressed in their robes, set up a dwarf couch on the upper floor and looked after the bodhisattvas. Hota Huya. The Bodhisattvas also considered the time for those who were buried there and got up in meditation and went to the king from the sky itself. The Mudalakhanas, listening to the Bodhisattvas taking ablutions in their white robes, immediately stood up from their places when they became more austere. Those queens who had stood up quickly fell off their veils. The ascetics looked through the four-chambered window and looked auspiciously through the evil image of the queen. At that time, Bodhisattvas were troubled inside. It was like a tree with milk. At that moment the meditation of the Bodhisattvas became irrelevant. Father but was like a crow. The Bodhisattvas, who accepted the food from the beginning and were not spared the sufferings, came down from the palace and went to the garden to the temple. On the seventh day, the king conquered Pasal Danava and rode into the city. He did not go to the palace and saw the ascetic. He went to the garden and went to the temple to become an ascetic. If he saw the place, he would be an Aphazu. Lord, who is the Aphazu? They are critics. After hearing this, the Bodhi animal said it was from the great king. I have no other partner. He said that he had developed feelings of suffering. Arya, has your heart been set on anyone? The great king said that he was concerned about money. The king called the ascetics and said, O good Lord, I will give you the wealth. Then they brought the queen to the palace and even gave it to the ascetics. High Givi so is. The ascetics took the queen out of the palace. Then, at the time when the Mudalakhanas left the great palace door, they said to the ascetics, Lord, grant us one house. Therefore, he said, Go and ask the king for a house. The ascetics heard this and asked the king for a house. The kings built a house that was like a toilet for human body work. The ascetics took the queen and went home. The queen was reluctant to go home. When asked why he was reluctant to touch the house, he said he was reluctant to touch it because it was impure. What shall I do now? When will the house be cleared of garbage and cleaned? Again she brought a bed, brought a chair, brought a lamp, brought a blanket, brought a time, and ordered them to bring the coffee again. At that time, the Bodhisattvas opened a pot and brought the coffee, but the coffee was spread all over the hall and placed on a couch. At that time, the Bodhisattvas who began to lie down together on the couch, squeezed the two circular leaves with their hands and said, Don't you know that you are a Sramana and a Brahman? He slapped himself in the face. Mahabosatana came to his senses at that time and was unconscious of lust for the whole time. Thus, afflictions are the root cause of ignorance. Mahabosatana remembers and thinks that if this craving is taken to the next level, it will not be sprinkled in the four hells. Therefore, today I have handed over these treasures to the king and gone to the Himalayan forest. I have no use for them. In the morning, the queen betrayed the king saying that because of them my lust only increased. And before I received your jewels, my lord, I had a desire to be good, and at one time I received these long and wide-sensed jewels. Beginning at that time is the craving for home. Apparatus is lust, consumption is lust, and so many forms of lust were brought to the next level. If that desire increases like this in the future too, I will not be sprinkled with the four hells. So I have no use for queens. At that moment, he gave birth to the Dhyan, sat in the sky and preached the Dharma, warned the king and went from the sky to the Himalayan forest and did not come back in the direction of a human path. In Matu Mata also, Metta Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha meditated on the four Brahma Viharas and went to the imperishable Dhyan and was born in the world of Brahma. Lord Buddha, the teacher, delivered this sermon and declared the fourfold truth. The end of the Chatusatya Dharma sermons was located in the Ukatli Mahana Sovan line. Sarvajna completed the preliminaries and said this Mudu Lakhana Jatak. The kings of that time are now Ananda Sthaviras. Mudulakhanavas or Utpala Varna Mahasthaviravas. At the same time, he said to himself, if I am the king of Tilunguru Samyak Sambudhu, I am the same.